Back when I was a young featherhead amid a time in gaming when journalists claim it was racist, I spent a fair bit of time on the PS2 playing as an Indian in a little something called TUROK Evolution. Admittedly, my memory and child brain blurred its many flaws, but I loved it. I loved marching through the jungle in sci-fi structures, loosing arrows and clubbing reptilian humanoids to death. What I didn't know at the time was that this was part of a long-running series, a series that saw its debut back on the Nintendo 64. If you've caught my live streams, you'd know I'm working my way through the titles, and I think it's time I started covering them in video form, where I can more precisely give my thoughts. That said, I'll be working off the Night Dive remaster. There's a number of improvements, and I strongly believe this is the best way to play the games. That said, I will bring up any differences I'm aware of. TUROK is a long-running comic series that technically has origins in the Lone Ranger series, and apparently has another origin coming out. I don't feel too good about it, Mr. Stark. Well, the original series faded away before being brought back by Valiant Comics, a company you may know for Bloodshot. That movie with Riddick. Was I the only one who saw that film? Anyways, they updated a ton of the lore, taking it from a hidden valley to more of another world setting called the Lost Lands. Here you have all sorts of oddities like talking raptors, mercenaries, and alien bugs. When publisher Acclaim bought Valiant for $65 million in 1994, and developer Iguana Entertainment for $5 million, the next year they began work on TUROK Dinosaur Hunter. Originally, plans seemed to have it be a 2D side-scroller, but the FPS genre was chosen. Chosen with rather precise timing. So in 1997, the world was handed TUROK Dinosaur Hunter, and then between 2015 and 2021, it was handed it again by Night Dive Studios. Despite what fellow time traveler John Carmack once said, I think the story matters for important context. So let me crack open the booklet. You are TUROK, as we'd later learn that's the title, and our hero is Talset, a warrior ripped from time and tasked with protecting Earth and the Lost Lands. Unless you're going by the comic. There's a lot of retcons. This title pits him against a man known only as the Campaigner, who has amassed a mighty army and searches for all 8 pieces of an ancient weapon known as the Chronoscepter. And that's all you get. I would hope you had the booklet when you purchased the game back in the day, as nothing else gives you any context. There's hints of environmental storytelling, but it's sparse, and even then, it does not say much. But hey, you're here for the blasting, and it feels great. Movement is fast and fluid to the point that when circle strafing, the camera turns a bit as to reflect this. It was a bit weird at first, but I quickly grew to enjoy it. Well, again, I can't speak for the original N64 version. The PC remaster I'm playing is smooth as butter. Running through the jungle and gunning down threats feels near perfect. You'll get an assortment of weaponry from the basic starters of a knife and a bow to later more technological weapons. Each of the weapons manages to feel unique and have usage throughout the 8 levels of the campaign. Most starting enemies can be handled easily with a swing of your knife or a well-aimed arrow, but later ones will require something like the shotgun or the minigun. The weapons pack a punch, which is helped by the animation work of the enemies. All of them have different animations for death. Most are harmless and just there to look cool during the brief moments of carnage where you can actually appreciate them. Meanwhile, something like the purlins can fall forward, possibly doing damage to the player. Yes, the enemies aren't just simple mercs and hostile natives, but also dinosaurs and other oddities, raptors and leapers who are quick to swarm the player, aliens and mechs utilizing advanced technology. You even face straight up cyborgs. The game finds clever ways to circle around the roster. That's a cute Dimetrodon you got there. What about if we slapped on some machine guns? This circular design is entirely limited to the enemies though. Talset will recover a number of weapons, but he'll also gain access to alternative rounds, explosive shells for the shotguns, as well as tech arrows for the bow, basically turning your bow into a more precise grenade launcher. Also, it should be noted that the bow can one-shot some enemies if you time it correctly by looking for the shine on the arrow. Well, on normal difficulty, I won't say the game is that difficult, especially since your gun won't reset to the center of the screen while moving. Later levels can still pose challenge, and ammo can start to run scarce for the arsenal, so keeping an eye out for secrets is vital. I will say that while this game is a shooter, it features an abundance of various platforming segments, some mandatory, some optional, and some a bit cheap. The basics of jumping platform to platform aren't that difficult even for an FPS game. Frankly, it can be rather fun in early levels to jump for secrets and weapon pickups. However, the game likes to troll the player with small platforms complete with infinite spawning flying enemies. And someone say hallelujah, because in the Lost Land, it's raining men. For the most part, falling damage isn't something to worry about, so there's that at least. If the player wishes, there's even portals that lead to challenge rooms for the player to attempt. Only 1 or 2 feature enemies, so the most difficult you'll often see is tied to swinging obstacles. That said, sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze. At least there's no fall damage, and you can leave at will. I will say it was awkward finding one and going in it only to discover it led to the same challenge room I already did and thus barren of pickups. The developers did mention that they essentially wanted to combine Doom and Tomb Raider. I think they achieved that as the maps are explorative with more than a few nooks and crannies to find. While later entries would double down on the complex layout of maps a bit too hard, I'm happy to find that the maps in this game are more interesting than frustrating. With only one approaching frustration, most are straightforward enough with looping secrets. The only problem with that looping is the respawn rate of enemies. In most games, you'd expect those you'd gun down to stay down, but in the Lost Land, everyone comes back.
A few moments later.
I live again.
And it won't take them long, as I think they spawn faster than guards in MGS1 recovered from being knocked out. It's actually helpful being as speedy as you are, since now you can handle them much quicker and clear the area before more spawn in. Speaking of spawning, the game starts rather abruptly with its first level. Here's your character, find these ruins, there's a secret pistol. At the very least, we get some of that sparse environmental storytelling with the fire pit and a cool monkey. Cutting down a native gives you a mortal wound, a health upgrade only found on normal and easy. You get them by killing with your knife or basic arrows. They only raise you to 120 hit points, but are permanent upgrades. Anything above normal difficulty doesn't have them though. This isn't the only thing you'll find, as the requirement for being in the game is found in the form of keys. I don't get why, but I thought TUROK was drinking something from them when I first saw it. These keys aren't for doors or anything. No, those are tied to enemies or floor buttons. Big, thick floor buttons. Instead, keys are used to unlock future levels where you'll repeat the cycle. In addition, there's a number of life force gems littered around. Pick up 100 and you get an extra life. Dying sends you back to either a checkpoint or a save station. I personally didn't have much problem with them, as I found them frequent enough. Playing these early levels on normal isn't very hard, and you should manage to max out to 9 lives rather fast. For the most part, while recording footage, I only really died due to falling. Once again, I want to applaud the death animations. While I'm not bothered by the graphics, it's clear they leave a lot to the imagination, something that is only aided by the impressive final moments. Sometimes it doesn't fit, but others it works perfectly. I did notice that the AI is easily breakable. Also, if you want more health, then hitting herbivore creatures will give you just that. This level gives you the all-right pistol as well as the pump shotgun. It will be outperformed by the auto shotgun, but for now, it serves as a nice workhorse against the enemies. We also encounter our first Purlin. While most enemies you'll encounter early on are melee or hit scan, the Purlin's opt for melee and these ground pound AoE attacks, before later having projectile variations. He makes the most of his final moments too. Level 1 just hits us with everything, as we also see the second power-up, Spiritual Invincibility. Starts an early 2000s rave party complete with slow-mo, flashing lights, and rockin' music. Okay, admittedly the music is just from the level. While the remaster allows you to choose between the Nintendo 64 or the PC variant, I prefer the Nintendo 64. Can't explain why, it just seems more pounding and intense. Either way, the music really fits the speed and tone of the game. You're a one-man hunter deep in enemy lines. Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Apocalypto redone with this music. Securing keys and some explosive rounds, we swerve into a cave system where we encounter leapers. More agile than other melee units, they bounce and leap towards you. They aren't the toughest to kill, but the sounds of them moving and screeching in the caves is downright haunting. That sound kind of reminds me of that movie. Oh no! Truly can't escape this, man. No, I don't want to join the family! Anyways, level 1 comes to a close against the projectile Perlin and arrival at the ruins, which will serve as our mission hub. Interestingly, you managed to snag enough keys for mission 2 and 3. I like the freedom of being able to go into later missions and not just be restricted to taking them in order. I suppose with no real story elements at play, it's rather easy. Besides, they clearly didn't want any order. I mean, look at the layout. Mission 2 is here, Mission 5 is there, 4 is here. Why did they do this? Why is it not just in order? Mission 2 is the jungle. You can tell because it starts with 2 monkeys instead of 1. It gives you a good look at why the original game had so much fog, in addition to saving on resources. Also, yeah, keeping your lives and health high is vital to surviving the game. I teleport through a portal, and before I came in far of a shot, I'm already struck twice. He hasn't even turned to face me yet. While the enemies aren't naturally hostile, at least the environment will still go after them. Again, the had to draw distance feels like finding the man behind the curtain. Also, hey, you can get your hands on the rifle, a burst fire gun, and the auto shotgun. I haven't found a reason not to use it over the pump. I suppose if you wish to manage ammo better, the pump is easier? Speaking of managing ammo, one disappointment I have is the inability to swap ammo types. You are forced to use the special ammo first, tech arrows before normal arrows, and explosive rounds before 12 gauge. I could see how maybe Night Dive thought it was part of the original design, as if I wished to conserve special ammo, I'd have to swap to another firearm. This becomes easier as your arsenal grows and ammo is rather plentiful, so it never becomes a huge problem. It simply is an odd design choice. Also, if you ever want a crosshair, the handy dandy map will double as one. Fun fact, you can also pinch the minigun with 1 tech arrow. Now, I did miss a key during my time gathering footage, so let me point out that going back to a location is much easier as enemy spawns are greatly reduced. I don't know if this applies to all or just the ones the game recognizes you've killed prior. Anyways, forward on to level 3, the Ancient City. While the prior levels were similar, and you could say the game hasn't aged all that well, the attempts at a city is to an extent impressive. Having this giant wall you ascend to then multiple tiers of buildings which lead to a large courtyard. It's no Yarnum, but for the 90s it manages to come off like an impressive tribal city. And just like any big city, I was able to find some infighting. Infighting is just one of those things you love to see in gaming. I like it when various factions interact without the player doing much. While here they won't actively fight each other because they are under the campaigner's standard, it is interesting to get some rare death matches going. Small gripe, but while jumping it's hard to maintain momentum, so instead of jumping in fast succession, you instead have to do the jump, then stop, and set up for another jump. Small gripe, I'll admit, but I wanted to slip it in somewhere. Another small gripe is that you may look at your item list and see 1 key missing. This is due to the boss of that area having the final key. I know it might look suspicious to have 1 less key for this level, but it could lead to a player scouring the map for a key that simply does not exist. Well, once you enter the portal, you find yourself in a circular arena. The boss is Long Hunter, or at least it will be. You have to circle strafe 2 rather annoying Humvees first. There's items to recover around the map, but the Humvees love to ram and bump Talset around. Hope you saved up on explosive shells or some tech arrows. After taking out 2 of them, the Long Hunter appears. He's listed as being inspired by the comics Israel Crockett, but it looks like his character complete with hoop earring. Not much banter occurs as he opts to let his plasma rifle speak. I found that maintaining distance and using the minigun or rifle worked best. Gave you ample time to evade the plasma rounds and not suffer any melee attacks. Well, again, the game isn't heavy on story, and I won't be touching on much of TUROK's lore for this video. I will put up a spoiler timestamp for those who wish to skip the remaining levels I will be talking about. Level 4 is the ruins, and well, see what I mean when I said the early missions were too easy on normal? Anyways, level 4 is a return to the jungle-like environment of the first 2 missions. It's not bad, I rather enjoyed figuring out how to get over to this island and secure its bounty. I just see how, after the interesting design of 3, players might hope for a bit more variety to levels going forward. Well, you do get this room complete with statues, or at least you think they're statues. Yeah, well, this level is more jungle biome. It does come with some memorable moments, from that statue segment that gives a sneak peek of upcoming foes, to the rainbow pathway to the grenade launcher, even a what's behind the door style puzzle that isn't so much a puzzle as blind luck. This level definitely has some of the more fun platforming challenges while still having a degree of danger, such as clicking buttons to set off timed platforms to navigate in this room where it's possible to find yourself stuck and unable to continue without running back to the start. The bit with the water climb was also rather cool. Now would be a good time to mention the Chronoscepter. Yes, the weapon the campaigner needs to win the fight. Over the course of the 8 missions, TUROK can find one piece per mission. They're often hidden just well enough that you get an aha moment when you find them, but not too difficult that you need to walk through. Just a little exploration will find most with ease. One is simply jumping to another platform, while mission 3 just needs you to wonder why that patch of climbable vines is over there. Also, the plasma rifle is essentially a more powerful rifle, but since they don't share ammo, it avoids the problem of the shotguns. The grenade launcher is just fun. It has a solid arc that is helped by the grenade bouncing or rolling upon impact unless it hits a target. Mission 5, the Catacombs, is probably my least favorite mission of them all. Not saying it isn't fun with the traps to avoid and mechanisms to interact with, but the confined spaces, repeating textures, and map design simply serve to confuse the player. There are rooms that are essentially the same type of room you were just in, and this can lead to easy confusion. It's not as bad as what will come in a later title, but it still is one of the poorer maps. I still had fun, and I enjoyed how draining water in one section of the map led to another now being safe to navigate. The maps may not be the most realistic, but they flow and circle rather nicely. The purlins smashing through the walls are also a nice touch. Anyways, exiting this level leads to one of the more impressive boss fights, a giant bug. Wait, come back, please. It's actually a really cool fight as the mantis frees itself from stone and charges after the player using acid spit to try and kill them. When wounded enough, it will bounce off the walls, opening the arena more and more. I like this natural progression of the stage. More room means more maneuverability as well as supplies. However, he seems to get faster and more aggressive as the match goes on. It's a fun balance, and unlike the Humvees, you don't end up in a circle strafe merry-go-round. Oh yeah, and Talset does this little jig with each boss defeated. It's endearing. Level 6, the Treetop Village, serves as a nice little fake out on the player. You start in and think you've been returned to the jungle, but that's just the opening. Swimming up into a tree, you're taken to the village. High above the ground, the lightning crackles and thunder roars as you clear out the enemies. It's a fun level and has you start engaging more alien enemies, as well as giving you their weaponry. It's alright with an initial low damage shot that's then followed up with an explosion. I still prefer the plasma rifle as the alien weapon doesn't seem to reliably deal damage with the explosion. This is also where the difficulty starts ramping up. You engage way more sergeants and priests here. The alien infantry also don't mess around with their weapons. The village has gotten so bad, even the dinos are packing heat. Also real nice hiding the Chronoscepter piece behind the end level portal. Now welcome to level 7, the Lost Land. Whoo boy, it's a doozy. For starters, your standard enemy has been upgraded to demons. These alien from V knockoffs pack a punch and can take several. They aren't all either. Man-eating plants set near items, lava pits, giant worm enemies, triceratops with guns, and plenty of traps. The Lost Lands isn't fooling around, and they even gave the raptors literal hand cannons. Everything is different about this level. Well, for the most part, the game has been greens, blues, and grays. This level instead goes with a warm color, and that's just to let you know that the difficulty has gotten cranked up. If you're running this on hard, good luck. I can confidently say the prior missions on normal were too easy, but now it's a challenge. About half or 2/3 of the level is spent in the hellhole known as the Lost Lands before teleporting to a lift and storming an enemy compound. It's pretty fun, and the enemy starts whipping out the big guns with their mechs. Good thing, by this point you have the quad launcher. On normal, it manages to one-shot the enemy armor. Just to cement this level's difficulty, the challenge room even has enemies in it. Mission 8, the Confrontation, is arguably easier than the Lost Lands, but just about as difficult. I mean, you have a room with 5 mechs and now have to contend with cyborgs. The basic ones are surprisingly easy, but the beefier ones... What doesn't help is that this is probably the second most confusing map. At least it's a bit more discernible from the catacombs. Also, do you like giant muck monsters? We have those. They are canon to Turok. At least all this leads to a boss fight against the campaigner's pet, Thunder. It's honestly kind of endearing that he has a pet and named it Thunder. Well, time to kill it. Not that it's particularly easy, he's just as aggressive as the Humvees and has an array of weaponry to back it up. Melee, flamethrower, laser eye, and an AoE. I also just noticed while writing this, he has a Stegosaurus tail. That's a really cool design. He serves as a pretty good culmination boss of various enemies we've fought up to this point. Rather challenging, which is good, just all around a solid boss fight. Now it's time for the campaigner. And since I'm trying to get myself on Santa's nice list, I went and found all the Chronoscepter parts. So yeah, the fight is over in 3 hits. He's the only enemy you get to use the weapon on. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't explore his actual boss fight. Well, he's agile, like the Mantis. Running around and back flipping, he'll try to close in for melee or pull back for a variety of range attacks, from calling down explosives to throwing his war pick. The boss can really keep you on your toes. Aiding him even further is a shield that pops up, and to my knowledge, you simply have to wait for it to pass. I did learn during this that he has a cool death animation for Talset should you fail in battle. All the bosses, save for I think the Humvees, have one of these. I'm particularly fond of Thunder, where he just leaves a feather behind. Also, something of note is that the campaigner was an enemy of Turok in the comics. Well, here, not much is said. In the comics, he is tied to another villain called Mother God. Again, the comics and books will be for another time. Right now, it's time to run. In cutscene form, as once the campaigner is dead, the game just ends. Like I said, there isn't much in the way of story, but hey, sometimes all you need is the knowledge that some asshat needs to be taken down or bad things will happen. It's nice, and this game makes it fun. TUROK Dinosaur Hunter, to me, is truly like Doom 1 or 2, or even 2016. I can just pop them in and have fun. They're borderline relaxing. While later levels can get challenging, the first handful are fun and engaging. The gunplay and speed makes you feel like you're John Wick in the entirety of the campaigner's army. While lack of story, context, much of an ending, or really any sort of interaction past exploration and shooting may turn off some, I found the game really enjoyable. If you know what to do, it's not particularly long, coming in at 5 to 6 hours. A first time run could get you up to 10 as you try to find all the keys and pieces. I'm happy with the Night Dive remaster. While the extended draw distance leads to oddities, it's overall an improvement on the original. While I can't say you should buy all the remastered games off this one, I can say that if you find TUROK Dinosaur Hunter on sale, it's a solid pick on any platform. Night Dive doesn't seem to be stopping with Turok though, as it seems they're skipping Rage Wars for Evolutions. That said, it's clear the Turok IP isn't entirely dead either, as a new entry was just announced. Though I'm hesitant to say I'm excited, I do hope to play before finishing this retrospective. While I feel like the series would improve upon many aspects going forward, I don't think it ever really captured the pure arcade fun of the first entry. Not to say the shooting wasn't great in those games, just that they had more aspects at play than just the action. Also, we all know that the sequel is confusing as fuck with its levels. Interestingly, the booklet I found for the N64 original contained a small comic. However, instead of following Talset, it follows Joshua Fireseed, protagonist of the second game, who was brought back in time by Talset to help beat the Conqueror and save some hostages. He does this with an Abbott and Costello bit. Pretty sure this is meant to be like those joke panels at the back of Goblin Slayer volumes. An odd note to end on. I mean, I suppose with Turok being a lineage thing, it is all about family. Shut the fuck up!
I got family.